Hey everyone, it's Alex again, and I am back with another Oscar update video, this time concerning one of the most popular and one of the most scrutinized categories in the Oscar race, Best Animated Feature. Now this is the youngest category so far in the history of the Oscars. It wasn't introduced as part of the ceremony until 2001, and in that year Shrek became the very first film to win the Best Animated Feature Oscar. And in the years following, several great films have succeeded in Shrek's footsteps. Other winners include Spirited Away, Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, Happy Feet, Ratatouille, WALL-E, Up, Toy Story 3, Rango, Brave, Frozen, and Big Hero 6. And animation has always been a very popular genre of film, and if you go online in any YouTube video about animated movies, you'll find people who are very passionate about what they like and don't like about animated movies. And that is no different with the Oscar nominations for Best Animated Feature every year. People are always, "Yay, I'm so glad that this got nominated," or "Boo, why is that nominated? Boo, this should have been nominated and not that." And then when something wins, there's always, "Yay, I'm so happy that won. Boo, I'm angry that that won. This other movie should have won." Of course, that happens in almost every other category as well, with people cheering and jeering the winner, but unless you're a cinephile like me, you'd be surprised at just how controversial these nominations and wins can get with animation fans. And I have no doubt that that is probably going to happen again this year. Of course, right now we have no idea what the Best Animated Feature nominees will be, but I am here today to tell you what they possibly could be. Yes, the Academy has released a press statement about the films that are now the official contenders for Best Animated Feature. And like other categories I've talked about, such as Best Foreign Language Film, Best Documentary Feature, and Best Documentary Short Subject, Best Animated Feature is one of those categories where there's a very strict set of rules in how a film is eligible and how it is ultimately chosen for a nomination. And like the other categories I've talked about, there are some strict guidelines as to how a film can be eligible in the first place. According to Academy rules, an animated feature film to be eligible for consideration must be at least 40 minutes long, and at least 75% of the movie must be animated. So there can be a little bit of live action thrown in there, kind of like how there was in the Lego movie, but if the live action should overwhelm the animation in terms of how much is in there, then it disqualifies the movie from being considered. And like the documentary category as well as the Best Picture category, the animated films must have received at least a 1-week theatrical distribution in Los Angeles in order to be eligible for consideration. And here's something I didn't know about until I read this. At least 8 animated movies have to have been released in Los Angeles in 1 year in order for the category to even participate in the Oscars. That's something I've never known about before, but obviously since Best Animated Feature has been awarded every year since 2001, there's never been a shortage of animated movies eligible for consideration, and that's no different this year. Now this is how the nomination process works. Like Best Foreign Language Film, Best Animated Feature nominees are chosen in a committee. A chairperson appointed by the Academy President shall head the Animated Feature Film Award Reviewing Committee. An invitational letter will be sent to a list of active and life Academy members requesting their participation. Those serving on the committee will be required to see 66% of the submitted eligible films. So this is open not only to the members of the short films and feature animation branch, but also members of other branches as well. And of course, so they will get into the committee, they will be split into groups to watch the movies, they have to watch at least 2/3 of them, and there can be a maximum, and the maximum that they are allowed to nominate depends on how many movies are eligible for consideration. For instance, if 8 to 12 animated movies are released in Los Angeles, 3 movies can be nominated maximum. If 13 to 15 films are released, then 4 films can be nominated maximum. And if 16 or more movies are released, then 5 movies can be nominated maximum. And then once the Academy members watch the movies, they then have to score the movie on a scale of 6 to 10. 6 meaning poor, 10 meaning excellent. And only films that receive an average score of 7.5 or higher shall be eligible for nomination. Now, as for the eligible contenders, this year 16 films have been declared eligible for Best Animated Feature, which means we can see a maximum of 5 nominees in this category. Whether or not that will happen, I don't know, but for the last few years we've had 5 nominees in the category, so I have reason to believe that that will happen again this time. The 16 eligible films are, in alphabetical order, Anomalisa, The Boy and the Beast, Boy and the World, The Good Dinosaur, Home, Hotel Transylvania 2, Inside Out, The Laws of the Universe Part 0, Minions, Moomins on the Riviera, The Peanuts Movie, The Prophet, Regular Show the Movie, Shaun the Sheep Movie, the SpongeBob movie Sponge Out of Water, and When Marnie Was There. Now, some of these movies I am quite familiar with, either because I've seen them or I've heard about them. The Good Dinosaur I've heard a lot about. That's Pixar's newest movie that comes out this week. It was supposed to come out last year, but there were like major problems with the script. The director ended up being fired because he was refusing to make changes to it, and pretty much the entire script had to be rewritten, and they even replaced almost all of the original voice cast. But it's finally coming out today as I'm making this video, and word of mouth has been pretty positive. But, you know, I've always loved Pixar, and I'm going to be seeing The Good Dinosaur eventually, and, you know, I have nothing but high hopes for it. Home I've certainly heard about. I did not see that. That's the one with Rihanna as this girl who's looking for her mother that was like kidnapped by aliens, and Jim Parsons plays this alien who's been banished from his home planet because he's like really annoying, and he and Rihanna's character end up becoming friends. Jennifer Lopez and Steve Martin also have roles in the movie as well. I've heard mixed things about it. I've heard the voice acting was great, but the story itself was meh. And honestly, it didn't look that appealing to me. It looked kind of like it was made only for like 5 to 6-year-olds. So, but if it does get nominated, I'll check it out. Hotel Transylvania 2 I've certainly heard of. It's kind of gotten a mixed critical reception, but a lot of Adam Sandler fans who've seen it have said it's his best movie in a long time. This movie, of course, is a sequel to the first Hotel Transylvania, and I haven't seen that movie either, but I know in that movie, Dracula, who's voiced by Adam Sandler, has a daughter voiced by Selena Gomez who falls in love with a human voiced by Andy Samberg who like visits their hotel, because Dracula and his daughter, I guess, run this hotel out in Transylvania. And I guess in the second movie, Dracula's daughter and this human she falls in love with, they get married, and then they have a son, and Dracula is worried that his grandson, Dracula is worried that his grandson, who's technically a half human, half vampire, won't have vampire traits, and sets out to find out whether or not his grandson can truly become a vampire. Same with Home. This movie looks more like it's for kids than adults. I've seen the Inside Out, and it's actually one of my favorite movies of the year. I'd even go so far to say it's among Pixar's greatest films that they've ever made. If you have not seen Inside Out, please go see it. I believe it's out on DVD now. It tells the story of this 11-year-old girl who moves across the country with her parents, and she's having a hard time adjusting. And we see the 5 main emotions in her head: joy, sadness, fear, anger, and disgust. They're trying to keep her emotions in check. Voice work in this movie is just absolutely phenomenal. Everyone is perfect in their roles. Amy Poehler as joy, Phyllis Smith as sadness, Bill Hader as fear, Louis Black as anger, and Mindy Kaling as disgust. All 5 of them absolutely perfect, especially Amy Poehler and Phyllis Smith. I'm not going to say too much because this is a movie that you should go in seeing with as little knowledge as possible, because if I were to tell you anything more, I'd have to give away major plot spoilers, and I don't want to do that. So if you have not seen Inside Out, go see it now. And I'm actually willing to bet Inside Out will probably win the Best Animated Feature Oscar, because many critics have said it's not only one of the best movies of the year, but many of them said it was one of the most emotional movies they had ever seen. So these are like middle-aged film critics admitting in their reviews that this movie made them cry, both men and women. So this is some Minions, of course, I've heard about. I've actually seen Minions as well. It's okay. It's not as good as the Despicable Me movies, and having the Minions as the main characters rather than as the side comic relief I think is a bit of a stretch, but they're still pretty funny, and I thought Sandra Bullock was great as the film's main villain, Scarlet Overkill, and John Hamm was funny as her husband. If you're a Despicable Me fan, I'd say go see Minions. If you're not, I'd say stay away. The Peanuts movie I've certainly heard about. I've heard critics say it's a movie that will not only please longtime Peanuts fans, but also win over new fans to the franchise, so good for them. And of course, and the SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water, I've certainly heard about that. I liked SpongeBob, I guess, when I was younger. I wasn't a die-hard fan of it, but there were some episodes I saw when I was younger that I really liked, such as SpongeBob getting the suds, Sandy being homesick for Texas, the Opposite Day episode where SpongeBob and Patrick pretend to be Squidward. And probably my favorite, the campfire episode where SpongeBob sings the campfire song. And I did see the first movie, not in theaters, but I often watched it with my brothers because when they were really little at that time, they were huge SpongeBob fans and they watched the first movie all the time. First movie was okay. Admittedly, the first movie was the first time I learned who David Hasselhoff was. I had never heard of him before I saw that movie. I've heard this movie is actually pretty good, and like a lot of 20-something old-school SpongeBob fans, who watched the show when they were young, have really loved it, and I know a lot of little kids love it. Although I've heard that the stop-motion 3D animation that they show in the trailer only happens in like the last 30 minutes of the movie, and that the first two-thirds are all the traditional 2D animation that you see in the show. So, as whether or not it'll get nominated, I honestly don't think it will. I doubt there's many Academy members who are huge SpongeBob fans, but we'll see. Those are the films I'm familiar with or have heard of. Now the ones I have sort of heard of, or never heard of until this list came out, and I'm going to read their plot summaries that I copied and pasted from IMDb. First up, Anomalisa. Motivational speaker Michael Stone has issues connecting with people and hears them all as having the same voice. One night at a hotel, all of that changes when he meets a woman who sounds absolutely beautiful. I've heard nothing but great things about this film. It's directed by Charlie Kaufman, who's best known as a writer. He's written movies like Being John Malkovich, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Adaptation, and this is a stop-motion animated movie. I've seen the trailer, and it looks really, really good. But unlike most of the movies on this list, Anomalisa is definitely for adults only, as the MPAA has given it an R rating. And David Thewlis, I guess, voices the main character, Michael Stone. He's best known as Professor Lupin from the Harry Potter movies. And Jennifer Jason Leigh. Admittedly, I've not seen too many of her movies, but she's going to be in Quentin Tarantino's upcoming movie, The Hateful Eight, so I'm really excited about that. And last time I checked, actually, I think Anomalisa had a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know if that's going to stay that way when more reviews come in, but if a film can start out and have 25 ratings, all of them positive, then that's usually a good sign that the rating on Rotten Tomatoes is probably not going to drop that much once all the rest of the reviews come in. So we'll see what happens in the future with that. Next up, The Boy and the Beast. A lost boy in Tokyo, Kyuta, slips into an alternate universe where he is raised by a bear man, Kumatetsu, who fights for a living. Kumatetsu trains Kyuta in the art of fighting over the years, but eventually Kyuta is thrust into a cataclysmic adventure which spans both worlds. Not really much I can say about that other than that plot description. So, next up, Boy and the World. Kyuka is a boy who lives in a distant world, in a small village in the interior of his mythical country. One day he sees his father leaving in search of work, embarking on a train tour to an unknown capital. The weeks that follow are of anguish and confusing memories. Next, The Laws of the Universe, Part 0. Yes, that really is the title. 5 students battle an alien invasion that has taken over the minds of their fellow students. That's all they say there. Moomins on the Riviera. The Moomins, along with Little Mai and Snork Maiden, take a sea journey to the Riviera, a place that puts their unity to the test. Apparently, the Moomins, I think, is based on a comic strip. It's one that I have never heard of until I heard of this list, so we'll see if it gets a nomination. I have no idea how many Moomins fans there are in the Academy, but you never know. Next, The Prophet. Mustafa, a prophet, is deemed to be a dissident and placed under house arrest. Camila seeks to help him while her daughter Almitra learns lessons from him. Now, this movie is based off a famous book by an Indian author named Khalil Gibran. I hope I said that right. It first came out in like the 1950s. The voice cast for this movie looks very interesting. Liam Neeson, Salma Hayek are listed as the voices of the main characters. So I have no idea if this is ever going to be released in the area where I live, but if it is, and if it's a nominee, I'll definitely check it out because it looks very interesting. Alright, next, Regular Show, the movie. After a high school lab experiment goes horribly wrong and accidentally creating a time-nado, I assume that's a cross between a time warp and a tornado, the universe is on the verge of being destroyed, and it's up to the slackers, Mordecai and Rigby, to go back in time and make things right. Now, this is actually another movie adaptation of a TV show. Regular Show is a show that currently airs on Cartoon Network, and I've never seen it because I stopped watching Cartoon Network a long time ago, because I'm now 25. But I've heard it's one of the most critically acclaimed shows Cartoon Network has ever had. And this movie actually is scheduled to premiere on Cartoon Network, I think, this week. But because it had a week-long theatrical run in Los Angeles, it's thus eligible for Oscar consideration. Shaun the Sheep movie. When Shaun decides to seek adventure away from the farm, he unwittingly causes an accident that sees the farmer suffer from amnesia and end up in the big city. Shaun must lead the flock there in an attempt to right his wrongs. Now, this movie is also based on a TV show, except this TV show is from the UK, and it's one of those stop-motion claymation TV shows that was created by Aardman Studios. That studio is famous for their claymation. They're most famously known for their Wallace and Gromit shorts, and they even made a Wallace and Gromit movie, which, as I mentioned earlier, won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. I haven't seen this movie, I didn't get a chance to, but everyone I know who's seen it has said it's really great. And then finally, When Marnie Was There. Sent from the city to a small seaside town, a young foster child, Anna, makes a new friend, Marnie, who soon becomes a mysterious presence in her life. This is one of those anime films that's getting an English language voiceover dub for its US release. Haley Steinfeld voices the main character. You probably might know her best from the remake of True Grit a few years ago, and earlier this year she starred in Pitch Perfect 2. And then Kiernan Shipka also has a voiceover role in here. If you're a Mad Men fan, you'll recognize her as Sally Draper, Don and Betty Draper's daughter. And then other cast members I remember seeing on IMDb, I think Kathy Bates has a voiceover role in this, and a few others. I can't remember who they are, but whenever they release these anime movies here in the US and they do the English voiceover dubs, they always cast like really well-known or really well-respected actors in the roles. So anyway, those are all the eligible contenders this year for Best Animated Feature. For what I think will actually get nominated, that's going to be very interesting, because the way this category seems to work is that they like to nominate 3 blockbusters and 2 obscure films. So with that knowledge, I think if I were to predict right now what's going to get nominated for Best Animated Feature, I think the nominees will be, in alphabetical order, The Good Dinosaur, Inside Out, the Peanuts movie, Shaun the Sheep movie, and When Marnie Was There. I think right now those are going to be the 5 nominees. Out of that bunch, I think Inside Out would easily win, and I think it is going to win. But we'll see what happens once the Oscar nominations are officially released in January. But whatever gets nominated, I know it's going to be a very exciting race, and I can't wait to see what the results will be. Well, anyway, that's all I have for now. But be sure to check back for more videos in the future, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!